beautiful girl, fall in love, trouble.
Here's a movie that I bet none of you have seen, 9.5 Ninjas. Yes, this is a spoof parody movie from the year 1991. And this one is directed by Aaran, although he's credited on the actual DVD as Aaron Worth. And this stars a guy's name who I'm going to absolutely butcher, Michael Phenicie and Andy Gray. It also has an appearance from Tom Tony Lister as well, who's actually probably the most recognisable face here. And this is obviously a comedy parody of both the kind of martial arts ninja genre that was popular in the 80s, even though this actually came out in the early 90s, and also the kind of the sex thriller movies that were kind of popular at the time, specifically 9.5 Weeks, which starred Kim Basinger. Now, Andy Gray, who plays the kind of the female lead on this, does actually quite resemble Kim Basinger in actual fact. So, does this movie even have a plot? Kind of. So, essentially, we have a woman who all the guys are kind of falling themselves over. You know, she's like Lisa. She's like this perfect woman, and she kind of meets this guy who trained in the in Asia and everything for martial arts, and he's like the guy of her dreams, and he defends her when she's attacked at the bar once. And we learn that there's some evil property developer that wants to buy this guy's property and has just bought Lisa's property, and he's the bad guy, and our hero doesn't want to sell, so he sends a bunch of ninjas. Then we have a kind of parody movie, which I guess primarily kind of parodies the kind of the sex thrillers and the kind of the martial arts genre, but with a few smattering of other things as well. So comedy is quite an objective thing to really critique, because people will find things funny which other people won't. Now, I'm up front, I am not a big fan of this spoof kind of parody genre, to be honest with you. I know there's, like, for example, Airplane is much beloved. I've never really been a big fan of it, if I'm honest with you. There are a couple of ones which I don't mind. To me, Not Another Teen Movie is probably the best out of these. And I'm not really into teen movies either, but I just kind of, for some reason, I find that one works quite well. Maybe because I don't really like the genre particularly much. But even films like Spaceballs, I'm not a huge fan of, if I'm honest. But I can appreciate that people do like them. Can I say anything positive about 9.5 Ninjas? I would say this. I think Andy Gray, who plays our Kim Basinger stand-in, there are the sequences that kind of parody the kind of the actual 9.5 Weeks, which this film is obviously directly parodying. They are quite sexy, and I think those scenes are actually done relatively well, where she's kind of like dancing and kind of like, you know, behind a water fountain and things like this. The actual sexy moments are filmed to be really not a parody in a couple of scenes, and I think those scenes do look like you could have just taken them from, you know, Wild Orchid or 9.5 Weeks or kind of films like that. And I think Andy Gray, who plays this little character Lisa, does a good job of actually pivoting between this kind of this sexy character, but also can then kind of change into a kind of comedic role, but also seem quite likeable. Our male character doesn't fare quite as well, because he's the martial artist, and you know, he's trying to train Lisa in the ways of the ninja and all of this. Those things don't work at all. The films the things that parody the martial art films, it's just like, it's just silly, and it's kind of like there's no real actual martial arts on display, you know. So I've recently reviewed Ninja Academy, and that did have at least some martial arts in there. And with Beverly Hills Ninja, there's still some sequences, for example, which you know, you can enjoy it as a legitimate martial arts scene, but a comedic. This one, you get a couple of somersaults and things, but it's just silly. Like, our guy's ninja outfit has got like polka dots on and things like this, and I don't think it's particularly funny. The movie is just kind of like the cheapest gags, and they're just not done to a particularly funny standard, really. It's just, I feel it's recycling jokes that have been done before a lot of the time. The guy who directed this primarily works as an assistant director, and I think he's only directed 2 actual films himself, this being one of them. But he just doesn't really make an engaging or funny film. You know, I don't think we really care about our characters. Now, it's you know, with these kind of movies, you don't really are invested in the plot as you would do a standard film. So I do understand that. But nonetheless, you still kind of want to go on a journey. You want to see what happens to the characters and enjoy the jokes kind of along the way. I think this movie just fails on all of these fronts, if I'm honest, outside of that kind of the one I think maybe the kind of the sexy scenes I think are probably done the best. So much more could have been done, I think, having a kind of a comedic martial arts film. And if you wanted to, you know, if you want to attract fans of the martial arts genre into watching a comedy, give them some martial arts, give them at least some funny versions of some of the tropes that you would have seen in, you know, the martial art movies. I mean, there's like you could parody the kind of like the bad dubbing and things like that, and wire work. I mean, we've seen it done in like Wayne's World 2, for example. It's a missed opportunity, and instead it goes for obvious kind of like gags that you've seen in kind of old like Buster Keaton films and things like that, and it's just not fun, not particularly engaging characters. There's no real plot. You know, I understand that might be a funny thing to say, but I still feel that some of these parodies at least have a story, as silly as it may be. This doesn't really even have that, so there's probably a reason why very few people have heard about this movie. I remember watching it back in the day and thinking, I remember this being really crap, and but I thought I'll buy it again because I kind of wanted to review it, and it was terrible. It was terrible. Joe Vogue, who's our main character, I mean, the character doesn't have a hell of a lot to do, to be honest. Played by Michael Phenicie. There you go. He looks a lot like Michael York, is it? Anyway, 2 out of 10 for me. This is not a good film. I probably wouldn't recommend this one. Go watch Beverly Hills Ninja instead. 2 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.